The loudest sound in the world isn't a scream. It's the silence of a man realizing he has lost absolutely everything. My husband, Damian Cross, was a titan of Wall Street. He had a $50 million hedge fund, a penthouse on Park Avenue, a mistress half his age, and an ego big enough to fill both. He looked at me, his wife of 7 years, and saw nothing but a pretty decoration, a trophy, a fool. He thought he could hide $20 million in offshore shell companies. He thought he could serve me divorce papers and leave me penniless. He thought he was the predator and I was the prey. But Damien made one fatal calculation error. He forgot that before I was Mrs. Cross, the socialite, I was Katherine, the best forensic auditor in New York City. He didn't know that while he was sleeping with her, I was watching his money move. I didn't get mad. I didn't make a scene. I got his passwords. This is the story of how I didn't just divorce my husband. I liquidated him. The air in our Manhattan penthouse was always set to exactly 68 degrees, but tonight, it felt colder. I stood by the floor-to-ceiling window, looking out at the glittering spine of New York City. Below me, the city was alive, a river of yellow taxicabs and red taillights. But up here, on the 45th floor, the silence was suffocating. It was a silence that cost $15 million. My phone buzzed on the marble kitchen island. It wasn't a text. It was a security alert from our joint American Express Centurion account. Usually, I ignored these. Damian spent money like it was oxygen. Client dinners at Le Bernardine, flights to Zurich, suits from Tom Ford. But this notification was different. Transaction alert. Merchant, Van Cleef and Arpels, Fifth Avenue. Amount, $42,500. Item, Alhambra diamond necklace. Time, 10:45 p.m. I stared at the screen. My breath hitched in my throat. It wasn't my birthday. It wasn't our anniversary. And I certainly wasn't wearing a $42,000 necklace. I looked at the time on the microwave. 11:15 p.m. Damian had told me he was at a critical strategy meeting with the partners from the Tokyo firm. Since when did strategy meetings happen at a jewelry store on Fifth Avenue late at night? The sound of the heavy oak front door unlocking echoed through the apartment. I quickly placed my phone face down on the counter. My heart hammered against my ribs, but I forced my face into a mask of calm. This was the role I had played for 7 years. The supportive, unquestioning wife. The trophy Katherine. Damian walked in. He looked impeccable, as always. His navy suit was tailored to perfection, his hair swept back, but as he walked past me to loosen his tie, the air shifted. He smelled of scotch, cigars, and Chanel No. 5. I don't wear Chanel. "You're still up?" he asked, his voice rough. He didn't look at me. He walked straight to the liquor cabinet and poured himself a glass of water. "I was waiting for you," I said steadily. "How was the Tokyo meeting?" He took a long sip of water before turning around. He had that look in his eyes, the one he used on junior analysts when they asked a stupid question, a mix of pity and annoyance. "Brutal," he lied. "They want to restructure the Asia debt. I've been shouting at lawyers for 4 hours. I'm exhausted, Kat." "Liar! You weren't shouting at lawyers. You were buying diamonds." "You must be tired," I said softly, walking over to him. I reached out to take his jacket. For a second, he flinched. Just a tiny, microscopic movement. He didn't want me near the jacket. "I've got it," he said quickly, brushing past me. "I need a shower. Don't wait up." He marched into the master bedroom, closing the door behind him. I stood alone in the hallway. The rage was starting to boil in my stomach, hot and acidic. I wanted to kick the door down. I wanted to scream. I wanted to ask him who she was. But then I remembered who I was. Before I married Damian Cross, I wasn't just a pretty face in the charity circuit. I was Katherine Vance, Senior Forensic Auditor at Deloitte. My job wasn't to scream. It was to follow the money. I used to track embezzlers, fraudsters, and corporate thieves. Damian had married me, and he had convinced me to quit. "You don't need to work, baby. Let me take care of the world. You just make our home beautiful." I realized now, standing in the hallway, that he hadn't asked me to quit because he loved me. He asked me to quit because he didn't want a detective living in his house. He wanted me blind. I walked quietly into the living room where he had left his briefcase. It was unlocked. Careless, arrogant. I opened it. Inside were the usual papers, market reports, legal briefs, but tucked in the back pocket was a second phone. A burner phone. I didn't touch it. Not yet. Fingerprints. Instead, I looked at his primary laptop sitting on the coffee table. He had left it open. I sat down. My hands were trembling, not from fear, but from adrenaline. It had been years since I hunted, but the instinct was still there. I opened the browser. History was cleared. Typical. I checked the email trash. Empty. Smart. But Damian was a man of ego, and men with big egos always make mistakes with their assets. They like to look at their money. I opened a hidden folder on his desktop disguised as system logs. I clicked on a file named Project Cayman. It was a PDF, a bank statement from a bank in the Cayman Islands. The account holder wasn't Damian Cross. It was a company called Blue Horizon LLC. I scrolled to the bottom line. Balance: $12,450,000. I felt the blood drain from my face. $12 million! Money that wasn't in our joint accounts. Money he had siphoned off. This wasn't just cheating. This was an exit strategy. He was planning to leave me. And he was planning to leave me with nothing but the clothes on my back. The bedroom door opened. I slammed the laptop shut, just as Damian walked out, a towel wrapped around his waist. "What are you doing?" he asked, his eyes narrowing. I turned to him, forcing a smile that didn't reach my eyes. "Just checking the weather for tomorrow. I was thinking of going to the Hamptons." He relaxed. He bought it. Because to him, I was just Katherine the spender, Katherine the fool. "Sure, honey," he said, turning off the lights. "Go have fun." I watched him walk back to bed. "I will," I whispered to the darkness. He thought I was going to the Hamptons to shop. He had no idea that tomorrow I wasn't going to the beach. I was going to war. The next morning, Damian was the picture of the perfect husband. He sat at the head of the mahogany dining table, reading the Wall Street Journal while eating egg whites. "I might be late tonight," he said, not looking up. "The Tokyo partners want to go over the quarterly projections. Dinner at Nobu." I sipped my black coffee. "Of course, business first." I watched him leave. The moment the elevator doors slid shut, the timer started. I didn't have to guess where he was going. I knew how to find out. I didn't follow him in a car. That's what jealous wives do. I was an auditor. I followed the data. I sat down at my computer and pulled up the transaction details from the Amex alert last night. Van Cleef and Arpels, $42,500. Diamonds have serial numbers. But more importantly, people who receive $40,000 necklaces usually can't resist showing them off, especially if they are young, insecure, and dating a married man. I opened Instagram. I didn't know her name yet, but I knew Damian's habits. He liked specific places: the Mark Hotel, Cipriani, Soho House. I started searching via location tags, geotags, for Cipriani downtown from last night. I scrolled through hundreds of photos, tourists, food bloggers, celebrities, and then I stopped. There's a photo posted 8 hours ago, a close-up of a woman's neck, a delicate, clover-shaped diamond necklace resting on her collarbone, the exact Van Cleef Alhambra vintage edition. The caption read, "He knows how to spoil me. Hashtag blessed. Hashtag my love." I clicked on the profile. Name, Lexi Summers. Bio, model, dreamer, NYC. She looked about 24. Blonde, fake tan, devastatingly pretty in a plastic sort of way. I scrolled through her feed. It was a timeline of my husband's stolen money. 3 weeks ago, a photo of a new Birkin bag. 2 months ago, a first-class seat to Miami. Damian had told me he was flying commercial to a conference. Last week, a selfie in a modern apartment with a view of the Hudson River. I zoomed in on the apartment photo. In the background, on the kitchen counter, was a familiar leather briefcase. Damian's Toomey bag. My blood ran cold. He wasn't just buying her dinner. He was keeping her. I quickly cross-referenced the view in her window with real estate listings on Zillow. It didn't take long. The building was the Hudson Yards Elite. Rents there started at $8,500 a month. I checked the Cayman Island bank statement I had found last night. There was a recurring transfer of $9,000 to a shell company called LXS Holdings. LXS. Lexi Summers. Damian wasn't just cheating on me physically. He was treating her like a business expense. He was laundering our marital assets into her lifestyle. I grabbed my coat. I needed to see it with my own eyes. An hour later, I was sitting in a coffee shop across the street from the Hudson Yards Elite, wearing oversized sunglasses and a baseball cap. At 12:30 p.m., the revolving doors opened. Lexi walked out. She looked even younger in person. She was wearing the necklace. She was laughing, holding a phone to her ear. A black Mercedes pulled up to the curb. It wasn't Damian's car. It was an Uber Black. But as she opened the door, I saw who was sitting inside waiting for her. Damian. He wasn't at a strategy meeting. He was picking her up for lunch. I watched him lean over and kiss her, a passionate, hungry kiss that he hadn't given me in 5 years. He handed her a white envelope. She opened it and squealed, throwing her arms around his neck. It looked like plane tickets. I took out my phone and snapped a series of photos. Click, click, click. The car drove away, merging into the chaotic New York traffic. I sat there for a long time, staring at the empty spot where the car had been. A normal wife would have rushed home to burn his clothes. A normal wife would have called him screaming. But I looked at the photos on my phone. The necklace, the apartment, the plane tickets. This wasn't just adultery. In the eyes of the IRS and the divorce court, this was dissipation of marital assets. If I divorced him now, I'd get half of what he admitted to having. But if I played this right, if I let him think he was safe, I could trace every single penny he hid. I took a sip of my latte. It was cold. "Enjoy your lunch, Damian," I whispered, "because you're going to pay for it, with interest." I stood up. I wasn't going home. I had one more stop to make. I needed a shark. It was time to visit an old friend who knew how to make billionaires bleed. The Wolf of Delancey Street. Most women in my position would have gone to a high-rise law firm in Midtown. They would have hired a man in a $3,000 suit who would promise them justice while charging $800 an hour. But I knew something those women didn't. High-rise lawyers settle. They make deals. They play golf with men like Damian. I didn't want a deal. I wanted a demolition. So I took a cab to the Lower East Side, far away from the prying eyes of Park Avenue. I stopped in front of the faded brick building on Delancey Street. The sign above the door was barely legible. A. Wolf, Forensic Accounting and Consultations. Arthur Wolf wasn't a lawyer, not anymore. He was a legend in the auditing world, a man who had brought down 3 Ponzi schemes in the 90s before he got too dangerous for the corporate world. He was the only man I trusted. I walked in. The office smelled of stale coffee and old paper. Wolf was sitting behind a desk buried under mountains of files. He looked like a man who hadn't slept in a decade. Gray hair, rumpled shirt, and eyes that were sharp as broken glass. "Katherine," he said, not looking up from a file, "I thought you retired to become a professional gala planner." "I did," I said, closing the door and locking it. "But I'm coming out of retirement." I pulled out the printed screenshots of the Project Cayman bank statement and the photos of Lexi I had taken an hour ago. I slid them across the desk. Wolf picked them up. He adjusted his glasses. He stared at the Cayman balance for a long time. Then he looked at the photo of Lexi. "Classic," he grunted. "The midlife crisis starter pack. Shell company in the Caribbean, girlfriend in Hudson Yards. Your husband is a cliché, Kat." "He's moving money, Wolf," I said, my voice tight. $12 million in that account alone. God knows how much more he has hidden. If I file for divorce today, he'll claim the market crashed, hide the rest, and I'll get pennies. Wolf leaned back in his creaky chair. "So, what do you want? You want me to find the rest?" "I want it all," I said coldly. "I want the offshore accounts, the crypto wallets, the real estate he bought under her name. I want to prove fraud, not just adultery. I want to trigger the dissipation of assets clause so hard that the judge gives me 100% of the marital estate." Wolf smiled. It wasn't a nice smile. It was the smile of a hunter seeing a trap snap shut. "You know the rules," he said, standing up and walking to a safe in the corner. "In New York, if you record him illegally, it's inadmissible in court. But if you find financial records on a shared device, that's fair game." He opened the safe and pulled out a small silver USB drive. He handed it to me and said, "This is a keystroke logger disguised as a firmware update tool. You need to plug this into his laptop for exactly 30 seconds. It will clone his passwords, his deleted emails, and his 2-factor authentication backup codes." I took the drive. It felt cold in my hand. It felt like a weapon. "He's paranoid," I said. "He never leaves his laptop alone." "Then you make him leave it. Create a crisis. Distract him. You know him better than anyone, Kat. Play the part. Be the dumb wife." He leaned over the desk, his eyes intense. "Listen to me closely. Once you plug this in, there is no going back. If he catches you, he destroys the evidence, and you lose. But if you pull this off, we don't just audit him, we own him." I closed my fist around the USB drive. "I'll do it tonight," I said. Wolf nodded. "Good hunting, Mrs. Cross." I walked out onto the noisy street. The sun was setting, casting long shadows over the city. I hailed a cab back to the penthouse. Tonight, I wasn't just a wife. I was a spy, and Damian was about to invite the enemy right into his bedroom. The USB drive in my pocket felt heavy, like a loaded gun. I walked into the penthouse at 7 p.m. The lights were dimmed, the city skyline glowing purple and gold outside. Damian was sitting on the white Italian leather sofa, the MacBook Pro open on his lap. He didn't look up. He was typing furiously. "You're late," he muttered. "Traffic on the FDR was a nightmare," I lied smoothly, hanging up my coat. I kept my hand in my pocket, gripping the cold metal of the drive. "Do you want a drink?" Scotch. Neat. I walked to the bar cart. My hands were steady, but my heart was hammering against my ribs like a trapped bird. I poured the Macallan 18 into a crystal glass. I poured myself a glass of Cabernet. I needed a plan. Wolf said I needed 30 seconds. Just 30 seconds of him leaving that laptop unlocked and unattended. But Damian was possessive. He took that laptop to the bathroom. He took it to bed. He never left it alone. I walked over and handed him the scotch. He took it, his eyes still glued to the screen. I glanced at the display. Emails, encrypted charts, the gold mine. "Are you hungry?" I asked, standing behind the sofa. "Not really. I ordered sushi. It'll be here in 10 minutes. 10 minutes. The delivery guy would buzz up. Damian might get up to answer the door. No, the doorman usually sent them up. That wouldn't work. I needed a crisis. I looked at the glass of red wine in my hand. Then I looked at the pristine, hand-woven silk rug that lay in the hallway leading to the bedroom. It was a Persian antique, worth about $60,000. Damian loved that rug more than he loved me. I took a deep breath. Showtime. I walked towards the bedroom, timing my steps. When I reached the center of the rug, I let my ankle twist. I gasped loudly, flailing my arms, and sent the glass of red wine flying. It shattered. The dark crimson liquid exploded across the beige silk like a gunshot wound. "Oh my God!" I screamed. "Damian, help!" Damian's head snapped up. He saw the wine spreading across his precious antique. His face went red. "Are you kidding me?" he roared, jumping off the sofa. "Katherine, do you have any idea what that is?" He slammed the laptop down on the coffee table, open, and sprinted towards the hallway. "I tripped. I'm so sorry," I cried, falling to my knees and uselessly dabbing at the stain with my hands. "Get the club soda, hurry!" "You clumsy idiot!" he shouted, running past me toward the kitchen to get the cleaning supplies. "Don't touch it! You're making it worse!" He turned the corner into the kitchen. Go. I scrambled up from the floor and sprinted back to the sofa. I slid onto my knees in front of the coffee table. I pulled the silver USB drive from my pocket and jammed it into the side port of his MacBook. A small terminal window popped up on the black screen. Installing system config update. 0%. I glanced at the kitchen. I could hear Damian slamming cabinet doors looking for the club soda. 20%. "Where the hell is the seltzer?" Damian yelled from the kitchen. "Bottom shelf, behind the vodka," I shouted back, my voice shaking. 45%. Come on, come on. I heard the hiss of a bottle opening. He was coming back. 60%. I could hear his heavy footsteps on the marble floor of the kitchen. He was 10 seconds away. 85%. I reached for the drive. 99%. Complete. The terminal window vanished. I yanked the drive out and shoved it into my bra just as Damian rounded the corner, a bottle of club soda in his hand and a towel over his shoulder. I threw myself back onto the floor near the spill, looking frantic. "I think I can save it," I sobbed. "Get away from it." Damian pushed me aside, pouring the soda onto the rug. He was furious. He was scrubbing the silk, muttering curses about my clumsiness, how I ruined everything nice he bought. I sat back on my heels watching him. My heart was racing so fast I thought I might pass out. But beneath the fear, I felt a rush of cold power. He was scrubbing a rug. I had just stolen his life. "I'm so sorry, Damian," I said, putting on my best apologetic face. "I'll pay for the cleaning." He didn't look at me. "Just go to bed, Katherine. I can't deal with you right now." "Okay," I whispered. I stood up and walked to the bedroom. I closed the door and leaned against it. Closing my eyes, I reached into my dress and pulled out the warm USB drive. Inside this little piece of metal were his passwords, his emails, his crypto keys, and the location of every single dollar he had hidden from me. I kissed the drive. "Good night, Damian." I smiled. The bankruptcy blueprint. At 9 a.m., while Damian was still yelling at his assistant over the phone about the stained rug, I slipped out of the apartment. I told the doorman I was going to a spa day in Tribeca. Instead, I took the subway to the Lower East Side. When I walked into Wolf's office, he didn't say hello. He just held out his hand. I placed the silver USB drive in his palm. He looked at it like it was a diamond. "You actually did it," he muttered, impressed. He plugged it into his isolated, air-gapped server. "Let's see what Mr. Master of the Universe is hiding." We watched the screen. A black terminal window opened, scrolling green text faster than the eye could follow. The software was cracking the hash codes of Damian's passwords using the keystrokes I had captured. Attempt 1, failed. Attempt 2, failed. Attempt 3, success. Password decrypted. Titanium 99 at. "Got him, Wolf," whispered. He used the password to log into Damian's private cloud server, a hidden partition on a Swiss server usually reserved for arms dealers and corrupt politicians. Folders began to appear on the screen. Photos, crypto keys, shell entities, legal drafts. Wolf clicked on Shell Entities. A spreadsheet opened. It was a spider web of financial lies. My eyes scanned the columns, widening with every row. "My God," I whispered. It wasn't just Blue Horizon LLC in the Caymans. There were 5 companies. LXS Holdings, Nevada, Vance Global, Panama, Orion Trust, Belize, Jupiter Real Estate, Singapore. Wolf did a quick sum calculation. He whistled low and long. "Katherine," he said, looking over his glasses, "he doesn't have $12 million hidden. He has $35 million hidden." $35 million. While he complained about my credit card bill for groceries? While he refused to donate to my mother's charity? "But that's not the worst part," Wolf said, his voice dropping an octave. He clicked on the folder marked Legal Drafts. He opened a PDF titled Exit Strategy KV. KV. Katherine Vance. Me. I leaned closer to the screen. It was a draft for a divorce petition prepared by his lawyers, dated 2 weeks ago. I started reading and my blood turned to ice. The document outlined a plan to file for personal bankruptcy, Chapter 7, on the same day he filed for divorce. Wolf read the strategy aloud, his voice dripping with disgust. He plans to transfer all liquid assets to these offshore shell companies. Then he declares bankruptcy here in New York. He claims the hedge fund failed. He claims he has 0 assets and massive debts. "You owe?" Wolf looked at me over his glasses. "Do you understand what he's doing, Kat?" I nodded slowly, feeling sick. "If he is bankrupt, the court can't give me anything. No alimony, no settlement. The prenup becomes worthless because there's no money to split." "But it's worse," Wolf said, pointing out a clause at the bottom. "He put the penthouse in your name as a joint liability guarantor last year. Remember signing those refinance papers?" "Yes," I whispered. "He said it was for tax benefits." It wasn't. Wolf slammed his hand on the desk. "It was a trap. When he declares bankruptcy, the bank will come for the house. But since he's broke, the debt falls on you. He walks away with $35 million in offshore accounts, and his new girlfriend. You walk away homeless and millions in debt." This room spun. He wasn't just leaving me. He was framing me. He was going to bury me under a mountain of debt while he sipped martinis on a yacht with Lexi. I sank into the chair. Tears pricked my eyes, but they didn't fall. The shock was replaced by a cold, hard clarity. This wasn't a marriage anymore. It was a crime scene. He thinks he's playing chess, Wolf said, lighting a cigarette. He thinks you're the pawn. I looked at the screen, at his secret accounts, his passwords, his entire life laid bare in digital code. He forgot one thing, Wolf, I said, my voice trembling with rage. What's that? He hasn't filed the bankruptcy papers yet. The money is still there. It's still sitting in those accounts. I stood up. I walked over to the window and looked out at the grimy street. Can we access the accounts? I asked. Wolf grinned. It was a terrifying look. We have his passwords. We have his two-factor authentication codes. We can do whatever the hell we want. Good, I said, turning back to him. Let him play bankruptcy. Let's show him what real bankruptcy looks like. What's the plan? Wolf asked. I looked at the spreadsheet again. LXS Holdings, the company named after his mistress. We aren't going to steal the money, I said. That's illegal. We're going to move it. We're going to make him spend it. We're going to trigger a tax audit so big it will swallow him whole. I picked up my purse. Wolf, prepare the transfer protocols. Tonight, Damian is taking me to a charity gala while he's smiling for the cameras. I'm going to start draining the swamp. The Trojan horse. To destroy your enemy, you don't stand outside their castle throwing rocks. You walk right through the front door, pouring them a drink and smiling while you poison it. I knew everything about Lexi Summers' finances. I knew she spent $400 a month on matcha lattes and $2,000 on Pilates. But I didn't know her. I didn't know what Damian was telling her. I needed to get inside her head. According to her Instagram stories, Lexi worked out every morning at 10 a.m. at the Sanctuary, an exclusive members-only gym in Hudson Yards. It was the kind of place where the water was infused with charcoal and the towels smelled like eucalyptus. I wasn't a member, but Damian was. And as his wife, I had a spouse privilege card I had never used. I didn't dress like Katherine the wife. I dressed like Kate the threat. I wore my sharpest Lululemon set, oversized Dior sunglasses, and pulled my hair back into a severe, sleek ponytail. No wedding ring. I walked into the gym. The air was thick with humidity and pretension. I spotted her immediately. Lexi was on a treadmill near the window, wearing a neon pink sports bra and matching leggings. She was taking a selfie in the mirror reflection. She looked even younger up close. Smooth skin, eager eyes, and a desperation to be noticed. I sat up on the treadmill next to her. I ran for 10 minutes, letting the sweat build, waiting for the right moment. Then I saw it. She placed her water bottle down. It was a limited edition hydro flask covered in stickers. One sticker caught my eye. Future Mrs. I slowed my treadmill to a walk. Love the shoes, I said, pointing to her Balenciaga sneakers. Are those the new season? Lexi looked at me, surprised. Then she smiled. Flattery was her currency. Yeah, she beamed, taking out her earpods. My boyfriend got them for me. He has really good taste. He must, I said, stepping off the machine and wiping my face with a towel. I'm Kate. Lexi, she said, hopping off. I haven't seen you here before. I just moved to the building, I lied effortlessly. My ex-husband got the house in the Hamptons. I got the penthouse here. Fair trade, right? Lexi's eyes lit up. I had just signaled two things. I was rich, and I was single. I was exactly who she wanted to be. That's amazing, she said. I love this building. My boyfriend practically lives here with me. His actual place is uptown, but, complicated. Let me guess. I leaned in, conspiringly. He's married. Lexi hesitated for a second, then nodded, rolling her eyes. Separated, basically. His wife is... she's a nightmare. Totally controlling. She doesn't understand his business at all. She just spends his money. I felt a sharp spike of adrenaline. So that was the narrative Damian was spinning. I was the villain. I was the gold digger. That sounds toxic, I said, forcing a sympathetic grimace. Why hasn't he left her yet? Lexi looked around, then lowered her voice. He's waiting for the right time. Legal stuff, you know? He told me he's moving all his assets so she can't touch them. Once the paperwork is done, boom, he's free. My heart stopped. He told her. Damian was so arrogant, so love-struck, that he had told this 24-year-old girl about his financial crimes. Smart man, I said coolly. You have to protect yourself. Exactly. Lexi pulled out her phone. Look at this. He's taking me to Miami next weekend to celebrate. He's buying a villa on Star Island. Put a deposit down yesterday. She showed me the photo. It was a modern white mansion on the water. Price? $12 million. I recognized the logo on the real estate listing. Jupiter Real Estate, one of the shell companies Wolf and I had found. He was using the hidden money to buy a house with her. It's beautiful, I said with my voice tight. You're a lucky girl, Lexi. I know, she sighed, clutching her phone. He said by Christmas it'll be just us. No more hiding. Christmas was 3 months away. That was my deadline. We should grab a smoothie sometime, I said, checking my watch. I'd love to hear more about the house. Totally, Lexi said. Here, take my number. She handed me her phone. I typed in my burner number. Text me, Kate, she called out as I walked towards the locker room. I will, I waved back. I walked into the steam room and sat down in the dense, hot fog. I was shaking. Not from fear, but from pure, unadulterated hate. He was building a future with her, using my life savings. He was laughing at me with her. He was painting me as the monster while he robbed me blind. I closed my eyes and let the steam fill my lungs. Wolf needed to know about the Miami trip. If Damian was closing on a house in Miami next weekend, that meant a massive wire transfer was about to happen. Millions of dollars would be moving from the Cayman Islands to Florida. Money in transit is vulnerable. I smiled in the mist. You want a house in Miami, Lexi? I'll give you a house. But you might not like the landlord. I wasn't just going to stop the sale. I was going to buy it out from under them using his own money. The war room on Delancey Street was filled with cigarette smoke and the hum of servers. Wolf was typing furiously on 3 different monitors. I stood behind him, watching the digital map of Damian's financial network. It looked like a tangled mess of wires, but Wolf saw paths. Okay, here's the situation, Wolf said, pointing to a glowing red line on the screen. Damian has scheduled a wire transfer for Friday morning at 9 a.m. Amount? $4.5 million. Source? Blue Horizon LLC, Cayman. Destination? Miami Title Escrow. That's the deposit for the villa, I said, crossing my arms. Exactly, Wolf nodded. Now, here is the problem. The Cayman Bank uses a, quote, dual key authorization. That means when he hits send, the bank sends a 6-digit code to his primary phone. He enters the code, money moves. If we don't have that code, we can't touch the money. I felt a knot in my stomach. His phone never leaves his hand, Wolf, especially not when he's doing a transfer like this. Wolf spun his chair around. We don't need his phone, Katherine. We need him to give us the code willingly. Why would he do that? Wolf grinned, revealing yellowed teeth. Because of phishing. Not the email kind, the voice kind. He pulled up a piece of software on his screen. It was a voice modulation program. He typed in a sample of audio, a recording of Damian's private banker in the Caymans, a man named Mr. Henderson. I had recorded Damian talking to him on speakerphone months ago. Wolf hit play. The computer spoke. "Good morning, Mr. Cross. This is Henderson from Cayman National. We need to verify a transaction." It sounded exactly like him. Perfect pitch, perfect British accent. "Here's the plan," Wolf said, his eyes gleaming. "On Friday morning, 1 minute before the transfer, I will jam his signal so the real bank's SMS doesn't reach him immediately. Then I will call him using a spoofed number that shows up as Cayman National Bank. This computer program will speak to him." "And then?" I asked. "The AI voice will tell him there is a, quote, security flag on the transfer, and he needs to verbally confirm the code that was just sent to his email, an email we just sent him." "And that email?" "That email," Wolf tapped the keyboard, "contains a link to a fake login page. He enters his credentials, he gives us the code, and instead of approving the transfer to Miami Title Escrow," Wolf hit a final key. The screen changed. The destination account shifted to KV Blind Trust. "He approves the transfer to you," Wolf finished. It was brilliant. It was dangerous. It was highly illegal. And I loved it. "But there's a catch," Wolf warned. "He's going to be at the airport or in Miami. If he gets suspicious, if he hangs up and calls the real bank, we are done. We need him distracted. We need him stressed." I smiled. Stressed? I can do stressed. I pulled out my phone. I opened the messaging app and found the contact I had saved yesterday. Lexi. I'm going to make sure his Friday morning is absolute chaos. I started typing a text to Lexi from my burner number. "Hey Lexi, it's Kate from the gym. I just heard a crazy rumor about the building management doing surprise inspections for illegal sublets this Friday morning. Make sure your boyfriend isn't listed on the lease. They're evicting people." I knew Damian wasn't on her lease. He was hiding. This would panic her. She would panic him. Wolf laughed. "You're evil, Mrs. Cross." "I'm efficient," I corrected him. I looked at the countdown clock on Wolf's screen. Time to transfer, 36 hours. "Get the AI ready, Wolf," I said, putting on my coat. "I'm going home to pack Damian's suitcase for him. I want to make sure he has everything he needs for a disaster." Friday morning arrived with the subtlety of a heart attack. At 8:30 a.m., Damian was pacing the living room of the penthouse, his phone pressed to his ear. He wasn't yelling at a broker. He was yelling at Lexi. "Babe, listen to me. No one is evicting you," he shouted, running a hand through his hair. "It's a luxury building. They don't do surprise inspections. Just don't open the door." I sat on the sofa, sipping herbal tea, watching the chaos I had orchestrated. My text to Lexi about the sublet inspections had worked perfectly. She was hysterical. She thought she was going to be thrown out on the street before he could buy the Miami villa. This made Damian stressed, and a stressed man is a sloppy man. "I have to go. I'm heading to Teterboro. The jet leaves in 40 minutes. Damian snapped at her. "I'll handle the wire transfer from the car. Just calm down." He hung up and grabbed his Toomey bag. He looked at me, his eyes wild. "I'm off," he said curtly. "Don't wait up on Sunday." "Have a safe flight, honey," I said, offering him a serene smile. "Try to relax." He slammed the door. As soon as the latch clicked, I dropped the tea. I grabbed my purse and sprinted to the elevator. I wasn't going to the airport. I was going to Wolf's office. The show was about to begin. 8:55 a.m. The war room. Wolf's office was dark, illuminated only by the glow of 4 monitors. The air conditioner hummed aggressively. "He's in the car," Wolf said, watching the GPS tracker we had planted on Damian's phone signal. "He's on the FDR drive. Perfect dead zone for signal jamming if we need it." 5 minutes to the transfer window, I said, my mouth dry. On the main screen, we had a mirror of Damian's email client. We saw the email from the real Cayman National Bank pop up in his drafts/trash. Wolf was intercepting his incoming mail, filtering it before Damian could see it. Okay, Wolf cracked his knuckles. He's logging into the banking app now. I can see the session active. Do it, I whispered. Wolf hit a key. A signal jammer protocol initiated. For the next 60 seconds, Damian's phone would lose connection to the local cell tower. He wouldn't be able to receive the real one-time password via SMS. Signal lost, Wolf confirmed. He's probably cursing at his phone right now. 8:59 a.m. Wolf initiated phase 2, the call. He dialed Damian's number using the spoofer. On Damian's screen, it would show up as Cayman National Bank, Priority Desk. Wolf activated the AI voice modulator. We held our breath. Ring, ring. Hello? Damian answered. He sounded frantic. I can't get a signal. I'm trying to authorize the transfer. Wolf typed a prompt into the AI text box. The computer spoke in Mr. Henderson's perfect, calm British accent. Mr. Cross, this is Henderson. We noticed a connectivity drop during your session. For security, the automated SMS system has been suspended. We need to verify the transfer manually. Jesus Christ, Damian exhaled. Okay, Henderson, just put it through. I need this money in the Miami escrow by 9:30. Of course, sir, the AI replied. I have sent a secure authorization link to your private email. Please click it and enter your 6-digit PIN to release the funds. Fine, hold on. On our screen, we saw Damian open his email. He saw the email we had sent. It looked identical to the bank's official template. He clicked the link. A fake login page appeared. I'm in, entering the PIN now. This was it. If he noticed the URL was slightly off, if he hesitated... 9 a.m. A green box flashed on Wolf's screen. PIN captured. 882941. Got it, Wolf hissed. He immediately killed the call with Damian. Thank you, Mr. Cross. Transfer initiating. Click. Wolf's fingers flew across the keyboard. He took the real PIN Damian had just given us and logged into the real Cayman National Bank account on our end. He opened the pending transfer window. The destination was set to Miami Title Escrow Services. Wolf hit Edit. He deleted the Miami account details. He pasted a new routing number. Destination, KV Consulting. Blind Trust, Zurich. Wolf, hurry, I said. He's going to check his app. And execute. Wolf slammed the enter key. Processing, approved. The screen flashed $4,500,000 transferred. Wolf slumped back in his chair, exhaling a cloud of smoke. It's done. The money's in Switzerland. By the time he lands in Florida, it'll be moved to Singapore. I stared at the screen. $4.5 million. Damian had just bought a house. But he didn't buy it for Lexi. He just bought it for me. 11:30 a.m., Miami. My phone buzzed. It was a text from Damian. Landed. Transfer complete. Going to sign papers now. Love you. I stared at the text. He had no idea. He saw the success screen on the fake page and assumed the money went where he wanted. He was walking into a closing meeting to buy a $12 million home with a deposit that wasn't there. I typed back, glad you're safe. Good luck with the meeting. I turned to Wolf. What happens when he gets to the title company? Wolf grinned. He hands them the confirmation code. They check their bank. They see 0. He calls the Cayman Bank. They tell him the money was sent to the account he authorized, which is now empty. He's going to lose his mind, I said. He's going to lose the house, Wolf corrected, and Lexi is going to lose her temper. I stood up, smoothing my skirt. I think I'll go shopping, I said. I suddenly feel like I have a lot of disposable income. The war had started with a receipt for a necklace. It was going to end with a receipt for his life. There is a specific kind of pleasure in watching a car crash when you are the one who cut the brake lines. I was sitting in my living room in Manhattan, a glass of Pinot Noir in my hand. On the coffee table, Wolf's laptop was open. We had a live audio stream from Damian's phone. Wolf had activated the microphone remotely. I put on my noise-canceling headphones, I closed my eyes, and I traveled to Miami. Scene: Miami Title and Escrow, Brickell Avenue. Time: 2 p.m. Through the headphones, I heard the crisp sound of paper shuffling. I heard the hum of an expensive air conditioner. "Here are the executed copies," Damian's voice said. He sounded confident, arrogant. "And here's the wire confirmation code. 4.5 million. The rest is financed through JP Morgan." "Thank you, Mr. Cross," a woman's voice replied, the title agent. "Let me just refresh the escrow account to verify receipt of funds. One moment." I took a sip of wine. This was the moment. The silence before the drop. I heard Lexi's voice. "Babe, can we get the keys today? I want to show the decorator the master suite before sunset." "Relax, baby," Damian chuckled. "You'll have the keys in 5 minutes." I smiled. "No, she won't." "Mr. Cross," the agent's voice changed. It wasn't polite anymore. It was confused. "I'm not seeing the inbound wire." "Refresh it," Damian said, dismissively. "It was sent at 9:01 sharp. I have the confirmation right here." "I've refreshed 3 times, sir. The account is 0. I heard the squeak of a leather chair. Damian was shifting. "That's impossible," he snapped. "Look, here is the email from Cayman National. Transaction ID 994 Alpha X. Check it." I heard keyboard typing. "Sir, I'm looking at the Fed wire system. That transaction ID, it doesn't exist in our ledger. The money never hit the Federal Reserve." "What do you mean it never hit?" Damian's voice rose an octave. "I sent it. My balance is down by $4 million. "Well, it's not here," the agent said, her tone icy. "And the seller is waiting in the other room. He has a backup offer from a cash buyer who is ready to close today. If the funds aren't here by 2:30, he's walking." "It's a glitch," Damian yelled. "I'm calling the bank." "Lexi, stop tapping your foot. It's annoying." "Don't yell at me," Lexi snapped back. "You said this was done. My friends are already planning the housewarming party." I laughed out loud in my empty apartment. Oh, the tragedy. I heard the beeping of phone buttons. Damian was calling the bank. "Hello, priority desk? This is Damian Cross. Where the hell is my wire?" Wolf and I had anticipated this. We couldn't block the call to the real bank now, but it didn't matter. The money was already gone. I heard the muffled voice of the real bank representative on the other end of Damian's speakerphone. "Mr. Cross, I see the transfer record here. You authorized a wire of $4.5 million at 9:01 a.m. via secure PIN authentication." "Yes, exactly," Damian shouted. "So why is the title company saying they don't have it?" "Sir," the banker paused, "you didn't send it to the title company. You sent it to a private trust in Zurich, KV Consulting Blind Trust. We have the routing number you entered." Silence. Dead silence. "I didn't enter a Swiss routing number," Damian whispered, his voice trembling. "I entered the Miami routing number. I clicked the link you sent me." "Sir, we didn't send you a link. We don't use links for wires. We use the mobile app." The sound of Damian's breathing got heavy, fast, panic attack heavy. "Babe?" Lexi's voice was small. "Where is the money?" "Shut up," Damian roared. "Someone hacked me. Someone changed the destination." "Mr. Cross," the agent interrupted. "It's 2:30. The seller is pulling the deal. The house is gone. Please vacate the conference room." The sound of a chair crashing over. Damian had stood up violently. You can't do this! I have the money! I just need to find it! Security? The agent called out. I took off the headphones. I didn't need to hear the rest. I knew what it looked like. Damian being escorted out of a glass building, sweating, terrified, with the crying mistress trailing behind him. He had lost the house. He had lost $4 million. And for the first time, he realized he wasn't the smartest man in the room. I picked up my phone. I sent one text to Wolf. Phase 1 complete. Initiate Phase 2. The tax audit. Damian thought a hacker stole his money. He was about to wish it was just a hacker, because next week he wasn't going to deal with criminals. He was going to deal with the IRS. And I was going to be the one handing them the evidence. Revenge is profitable. Literally. Most people don't know this, but the IRS has a special program called the Whistleblower Office. If you report a tax cheat and the government collects over $2 million, they pay the whistleblower 15% to 30% of the money collected. I sat in Wolf's office, a pen in my hand. In front of me was IRS Form 211, Application for Award for Original Information. "Are you sure you want to sign this?" Wolf asked, smoke curling from his cigarette. "Once you file this, there is no turning back. They will come for him. Hard." "He has $30 million in offshore accounts that he never declared," I said, signing my name with a flourish. "He evaded taxes on all of it. I'm just doing my civic duty." Wolf chuckled. "You're cold, Cat." I sealed the envelope. Inside were the PDFs of Blue Horizon LLC, the Caymans statements, and the wire transfer logs to LXS Holdings. "Mail it," I said. 2 days later, Wednesday, 11 a.m. I decided to visit Damian at his office. I wore a soft pastel dress and carried a bag of takeout from his favorite Italian place. I was the picture of the concerned, loving wife trying to comfort her stressed husband. Vance Capital was located on the 40th floor of a glass tower in Midtown. The office was buzzing with analysts shouting into phones. I walked into Damian's corner office. He looked terrible. His eyes were bloodshot, his tie was loose. He was screaming at his IT director. "I don't care what the logs say. Find the IP address. Someone stole $4 million. Find them or you're fired." The IT guy looked terrified. "Sir, the trace leads to a server in Switzerland. It's encrypted. We can't break it." "Get out," Damian roared. The IT guy scrambled out, nearly bumping into me. "Hi, honey," I said softly, closing the door. "I brought you lunch. Lasagna." Damian looked at me like I was an alien. "Lunch? Katherine, someone hacked my accounts. I'm bleeding cash. I don't have time for lasagna." "I know," I said, walking over and rubbing his tense shoulders. "It's terrible, but you need to eat. You look exhausted." He sighed, leaning back into my touch. "It's a nightmare. The Miami deal is dead. Lexi is, well, she's furious. And now I have to explain to the investors why our liquidity is down." "You'll fix it," I soothed. "You always do. You're the smartest man I know." He closed his eyes. "Yeah, I am." Ping. The elevator doors outside the glass office chimed. Usually, the elevator only opened for employees with key cards, but this time it opened for 6 people in matching navy blue windbreakers. They didn't look like clients. They moved in a pack. I watched over Damian's shoulder as the office fell silent. The analysts stopped typing, the phones stopped ringing. The lead agent walked straight toward the glass office. On the back of his jacket, in bold yellow letters, was the word IRSCI. criminal investigation. Damian opened his eyes. He followed my gaze. What the? He whispered. The door to his office swung open. The lead agent, a tall man with a buzz cut, flashed a badge. Damian Cross. Damian stood up, shaking. Yes? Who are you? You can't just barge in here. Special Agent Miller, IRS Criminal Investigation Division. His voice was flat. We have a warrant to seize all computers, physical files, and server backups related to Vance Capital and its subsidiary entities. Subsidiary? Damian, we don't have subsidiaries. Agent Miller pulled a piece of paper from his pocket. The warrant specifically names Blue Horizon LLC, LXS Holdings, and Orion Trust. Damian's face went white, ghost white. He looked at me. For a split second, I saw pure terror in his eyes. He couldn't understand how they knew those names. Those names were buried in encrypted folders on a Swiss server. This is a mistake, Damian said, his voice cracking. I want my lawyer. You can call him from the car, Agent Miller said. He nodded to the other agents. Bag everything. Phones, laptops, hard drives. Nobody leaves the building until we clear them. Two agents moved toward Damian's desk. One grabbed his laptop. The same laptop I hacked. Another grabbed his phone. Wait! Damian lunged for his laptop. That's private property! Sit down, sir. The agent shoved him back into his chair. I stood in the corner, clutching my purse, pressing my mouth in mock horror. Damian, what's happening? What are they talking about? Damian looked at me desperate. Katherine, call Harold. Call the legal team. Tell them it's a raid. I will, I stammered, fumbling with my phone. I didn't call the lawyer. I opened my camera app. I recorded Damian Cross, the Titan of Wall Street, being escorted out of his own office in front of his entire staff. I recorded the agents carrying out boxes of evidence that I had given them. As they led him into the elevator, he looked back at me one last time. He looked small, broken. It's going to be okay, baby, I shouted after him, waving. I turned back to the empty office. The analysts were staring at me. Everyone go home, I said, my voice calm and authoritative. I walked over to Damian's desk. The lasagna was still there, steaming. I picked up a fork and took a bite. It was delicious. The apartment was dark when Damian finally came home at 2 a.m. He didn't look like a Wall Street titan anymore. He looked like a fugitive. His shirt was untucked, his tie was gone, and he smelled of stale precinct coffee and fear. I was waiting for him in the living room, wearing a silk robe, looking like the worried wife. Damian! I stood up, rushing to him. I've been calling you for hours. The news, it's everywhere. They're saying Vance Capital is under investigation for money laundering. He pushed past me, walking straight to the bar. He poured a drink, his hands shaking so badly the bottle clinked against the glass. It's a witch hunt, he spat, downing the scotch and one gulp. They froze everything, Katherine. The business accounts, the personal accounts, even the credit cards. I tried to buy a coffee at the station and my card was declined. He laughed, a dry, hysterical sound. Declined. Me. What are we going to do? I asked, widening my eyes. I need a lawyer, he said, turning to me. I need Harold, but he wants a $500,000 retainer by tomorrow morning. If I don't pay him, he won't represent me. And if I don't have representation, I'm going to prison. He looked at me. For the first time in years, he wasn't looking through me. He was looking at me, because I was the only thing he had left. Katherine, he said, stepping closer, I need you to liquidate your jewelry, the diamonds, the Cartier pieces, everything. We need cash. I felt a flash of anger. He wanted to sell my jewelry to defend his crimes? The audacity. Damian, that won't be enough, I said softly. The jewelry is maybe 200,000. You need more. He ran a hand through his hair. Then we take a loan against the penthouse, a second mortgage. There's 10 million in equity here. We can't, I said. If the IRS has flagged you, no bank will lend to us. And worse, if they seize your assets, they will take this apartment. It's in both our names. Damian froze. The realization hit him. The IRS could seize the roof over his head. Fuck! He threw the glass against the wall. It shattered. I flinched, but I didn't retreat. This was the moment, the final trap. There is one way, I said quietly. Damian looked at me. What? I transfer the title to me, I said. My voice was calm, helpful. If the apartment is solely in my name and I'm not under investigation, the IRS can't seize it. It becomes my separate property. It's protected. Damian narrowed his eyes. The gears in his head were turning. He was a businessman. He knew that signing over a $15 million asset to his wife was risky. If I sign it over to you, he muttered, I lose control. It's temporary, Damian. I grabbed his hands, looking deep into his eyes. I'm your wife. I'm trying to save our home. Once this case blows over, I'll sign it back. But right now, we need to hide the asset. If the IRS sees it's yours, they take it. If it's mine, we keep it. He looked at the apartment. Then he looked at me. He saw the woman who had made him lasagna while he was being raided. He saw the dumb wife who didn't understand business. He didn't see the predator. You're right, he whispered. It's smart. We protect the asset. I'll call a notary, I said. They have 24-hour services. We can do the quitclaim deed tonight. 3:30 a.m. The notary, a tired-looking man named Bob, placed the stamp on the document. Quitclaim deed. Grantor, Damian Cross. Grantee, Katherine Cross. Property, 432 Park Avenue, Penthouse B. Damian signed with a heavy sigh. There, it's done. The house is yours. Thank you, Bob, I said, handing the notary his fee in cash. When the notary left, Damian collapsed onto the sofa. At least we saved the house. Now about the lawyer money. Actually, Damian, I said, picking up the signed deed and folding it neatly into my pocket, I don't think we need to worry about the lawyer money tonight. He frowned. What do you mean? Harold needs the wire by 9 a.m. I mean, I said, my voice changing, the sweetness evaporated. The warmth vanished. My voice became as cold as the diamonds he wanted me to sell. I'm not selling my jewelry, and I'm not giving you a dime. Damian sat up straight. Excuse me? I walked over to the bar and poured myself a glass of water. You see, Damian, I said, turning to face him, this apartment is now legally mine, solely mine, which means you are a guest here. He stood up, his face turning red. Katherine, stop joking. This isn't funny. Do I look like I'm laughing? I pulled out my phone. I opened the photos, the ones of him and Lexi, the bank statements, the transfer logs. I turned the screen towards him. I know about Lexi. I know about the Cayman accounts. I know about the Miami villa. And I know that yesterday you tried to transfer $4.5 million to run away with her. His face crumbled. He looked like he had been shot. How do you... I didn't just find the money, Damian, I smiled. I took it. That glitch yesterday, that was me. His knees gave out. He fell back onto the sofa. You? You have the money? I have the money, I nodded. And as of 5 minutes ago, I have the house. I walked to the front door and opened it wide. The hallway lights were bright and harsh. Get out. Katherine, please, he stammered, tears forming in his eyes. I have nowhere to go. My accounts are frozen. I have no cash. Go to Lexi, I suggested. Oh, wait. She probably blocked you when the credit card declined. I pointed to the door. Get out. Damian Cross, the man who thought he ruled the world, stood up shakily. He grabbed his jacket. He looked at me one last time, not with arrogance, but with pure terror. He realized that he had been sleeping next to a shark for 7 years. He walked into the hallway. I slammed the heavy oak door. I locked the bedbolt. And then I finally let myself laugh. 6 months later. The federal courthouse in Lower Manhattan is a cold, gray building. It smells of floor racks and broken dreams. I sat in the back row of courtroom 4B, wearing a white cashmere coat and vintage sunglasses. Next to me sat Wolf, looking surprisingly presentable in a suit that had been dry cleaned for the occasion. We were there to watch the final act of the play. Damian stood before the judge. He looked 10 years older. His hair was thinning, his posture was slumped, and he was wearing an ill-fitting orange jumpsuit instead of his bespoke navy suits. "Mr. Cross," the judge said, peering over his glasses, "you have pleaded guilty to 3 counts of wire fraud, tax evasion, and money laundering. Do you have anything to say before sentencing?" Damian didn't look at the judge. He turned around. He looked at the gallery. He looked for Lexi. She wasn't there. Lexi had moved to Dubai 3 weeks after Damian's arrest, reportedly on the arm of a crypto billionaire. When the money stopped flowing, so did her love. Damian's eyes finally found mine. For a moment, I saw the old Damian, the arrogance, the anger, but then it flickered out, replaced by resignation. He knew I had won. He knew I was the one who blew the whistle. "No, Your Honor," Damian whispered. "Very well." The judge banged the gavel. "I sentence you to 8 years in federal prison, followed by restitution of $22 million to the IRS. The bailiffs moved in. They handcuffed him. As they led him away, he didn't look back. I stood up. I didn't feel happy. I didn't feel sad. I just felt balanced. The ledger was finally zeroed out. 2 hours later. I sat in Wolf's office, sliding a check across his desk. It was his consulting fee, generous enough that he could finally retire to that beach in Mexico he always talked about. "So," Wolf said, lighting a cigar, "the IRS seized everything he had left. The offshore accounts, the cars, the stocks. He is completely wiped out." "Not everything," I smiled, taking a sip of champagne. I pulled a letter from my purse. It was from the IRS whistleblower office. Because I had formally reported Damian's tax evasion using Form 211, and because the government had successfully collected over $20 million based on my evidence, I was entitled to a reward. The whistleblower award, 20% of collected funds, total payout, $4.4 million. It was perfectly legal, tax-free, and completely mine. Combined with the apartment, which I had sold last week for $16 million, and the funds I had secured during the wire transfer incident, I was leaving this marriage with a net worth of over $25 million. Wolf laughed, a deep, raspy sound. "You know, Kat, you're scary. Remind me never to get on your bad side." "You're on my good side, Wolf." I winked. I walked out of the office and onto the busy New York street. The autumn air was crisp. The city was moving fast, indifferent to the tragedy of Damian Cross. I hailed a cab. "Where to, lady?" the driver asked. I looked at the skyline. I wasn't Katherine Cross anymore. I had legally changed my name back to Katherine Vance. JFK Airport. International Terminal. Going on vacation? No, I smiled, looking at the alert on my phone confirming my flight to Paris. I'm going to start a new business. I leaned back in the seat. Damian had taught me one valuable lesson. Love is expensive, but revenge pays up front. The end. Damian Cross made one fatal mistake. He thought his wife was blind, but she was just waiting for the right moment to strike. Now, I have a question for you. Did Katherine go too far? Or did Damian get exactly what he deserved? Let me know in the comments below. Type Team Katherine if you think she's a genius. Make sure you subscribe and turn on notifications. We drop new stories of payback every day. See that video on the left? If you thought this revenge was cold, wait until you hear the next one. Click it now.